You're watching Newsday TV. I'm Amy McGorry. Former Long Island Congressman George Santos has been sentenced to 87 months, which is just over 7 years in prison. Santos cried in court today and apologized for letting people down. He pleaded guilty to wire fraud and identity theft charges. Andrew Anger was at court and will bring us more details in just a moment. Police are asking for help identifying a body who they believe is a victim of a homicide. Officials say the body of a male was found in the water off Island Park earlier this month. The medical examiner's office says the victim was beaten and stabbed. Detectives want anyone with information to call the homicide squad number. It's right there on your screen at 516-573-7788. The alleged United Healthcare CEO killer has pleaded not guilty to charges that would make him eligible for the death penalty. Luigi Mangione appeared in court today on gun, stalking, and murder charges. The 26-year-old is accused of planning the killing for months because of his anger toward the insurance industry. And around 250,000 mourners have paid their last respects to Pope Francis after 3 days of a public viewing. His funeral will be held tomorrow in St. Peter's Square. Long Island representatives Tom Suozzi and Laura Gillen will be in attendance. The Pope died Monday at the age of 88. And community members are remembering a beloved coach and teacher. Adrian Gilmore, a high school coach in the Shoreham-Wading River District, died after collapsing at the middle school on Tuesday. The superintendent says Gilmore was not only an educator, but also a mentor. Gilmore was a teacher for 20 years. Moviegoers, listen up. This will be the last weekend to see a movie at Seaford Cinemas. The Merrick Road Theater says it will close on Monday. I know it's sad. Tickets were $5 for matinee showings and $10 for later screenings. It's been open for 25 years. And it's not a bad day to go check out a flick on Saturday. Yes, let's take a look at tomorrow's weather. You know, we have some rain in the forecast for Saturday, clouds and rain throughout the day. Temperatures hanging around just about 60, so it's got that little damp and chilly feeling to your day. We'll have your full 7-day forecast coming up in just a few moments. And George Santos has been sentenced to more than 7 years in prison. Andrew Anger tells us what happened in that courtroom.
Guys, back up.
Surrounded by a crush of media, disgraced former Congressman George Santos arrived at federal court in Central Islip Friday morning for sentencing on his guilty plea for charges of wire fraud and identity theft. Prosecutors said he misused hundreds of thousands of dollars of campaign funds on lavish trips and luxury goods, in addition to lying and stealing money from donors in New York's 3rd District. In court, Santos sobbed and apologized for his behavior, saying, "I betrayed the confidence entrusted in me by my constituents." But U.S. District Judge Joanna Seibert quickly took Santos to task, saying he had no remorse for his victims and criticized his comments and lies made online, saying, "Mr. Santos, words have consequences." She added, "I have sympathy for you, sir." Then Judge Seibert sentenced him to 87 months behind bars. Santos's attorney had asked for 24 months. As Santos left court, he said nothing to reporters and was quickly put into an awaiting car with his attorneys. But Santos supporter and January 6 Capitol rioter Philip Grillo from Queens, whose sentence was pardoned by the president, hoped Trump would intervene.
Hopefully, President Trump gets wind of it and maybe he can pardon him.
But prosecutors say Santos betrayed the public's trust over and over again while he was in office, after he was expelled from Congress, and right up to his guilty plea.
Today's sentence demonstrates that this egregious conduct will not and never will be tolerated.
Nassau District Attorney Ann Donnelly, whose office initially began the investigation into Santos's record and campaign finances, said Santos got what he deserved.
George Santos was the polar opposite of what a public servant should be. He is without integrity, unconcerned with his constituents, and self-interested in every way.
Since Santos has pleaded guilty in this case, he cannot appeal. So he'll now have 90 days to think about this sentencing. before he's required to report to federal prison on July 25th. Outside federal court in Central Islip, Andrew Enger, NewsdayTV.
And only in Newsday, we're looking at the costly process for disciplining teachers. Newsday investigative reporter Jim Baumbach tells us how it works and what it means for Long Island taxpayers.
We found that the teacher disciplinary process for school districts to discipline or terminate teachers is a long process that's very costly and is rarely used. In fact, over the last 2 years, it's only been used about 17 times, and it's only led to the firing about half of those teachers. We found that text messages between teachers and students, in one case it led to the firing of a teacher, in one case it led to a teacher being suspended for the year. The cost is a significant issue for the school districts, and it's the primary reason why school districts prefer not to go this route. It can cost up to several $100,000. I found one case that cost nearly $500,000 for a school district. They ended up terminating the teacher, but it took 3 years, and $500,000, that's taxpayer money.
I felt that it was Endometriosis Awareness Month, so I just felt like I needed to use my voice.
When a typically private Alexis Joel shared her personal battle with endometriosis on social media, she received hundreds of messages of shared pain, support, and gratitude.
How did it feel for you sharing your story and putting yourself out there and being so vulnerable?
I loved that it just created a place where women could speak to each other about exactly what happened, and everyone's story sounded like mine.
Her story is one of pain, persistence, and being her own advocate.
I knew nothing about endometriosis. I never heard it before. And I finally, after going through doctor after doctor and multiple GYNs, I was diagnosed. And that was kind of step one. As much as I do have access, I was stuck in the same situation as everyone else. I found my doctor by Google. My doctor is a man named Tamer Sekin. I read that he did Amy Schumer's surgery, so I was able to reach out to her, and she told me he will change your life and 100% do it. And he's like my guardian angel. He's working with Cold Spring Harbor, and they are opening a building. They are dedicating it to him, and it's going to be solely for endometriosis research. So I'm really proud. And we are right in the shadow of the Billy Joel Park in Cold Spring Harbor.
Oh,
so it's a full circle moment.
Feed Me is brought to you by PC Richard & Son.
Let's not mince words here. America is in the midst of a full-blown crisis when it comes to biscuit making.
This is kind of a dying art.
Why are biscuits dying? Is it keto? A national shift away from hearty breakfasts? Or could it be the biscuits themselves, which over the years have acquired an infamous and some would say undeserved reputation for being difficult to make?
I'm nervous.
Do not be nervous. I have no culinary training. Zero.
Really?
So if I can do it, you can do it.
Almost 20 years ago, Carrie Morey was a South Carolina stay-at-home mom looking for a side hustle, never imagining that her business, Callie's Hot Little Biscuit, would one day make her one of the country's leading biscuit authorities.
I would never make biscuits with unsalted butter. We use salted butter, which, by the way, we're breaking the baking rules.
She's also a cookbook author, host of her own PBS series, and, yes, an important figure in the movement to make America bake again.
We don't really care what recipe you use, we just want you to make biscuits.
She's so passionate about bringing back biscuits, she actually gives out her Callie's recipe to anyone who wants it, including Newsday, as we discovered during a visit to the kitchen of her home near Charleston.
If you've read a bazillion biscuit recipes, they all talk about how you need to freeze your butter. We are making thousands of biscuits a day, and so sometimes our butter is hard and cold, and sometimes it's room temperature or soft. My mom always used a second fat, which is cream cheese, and it's this tangy, perfect marriage with the buttermilk and the cream cheese. We don't really measure the buttermilk. So when it's super hot and humid, we may use less. When it's cold and dry, it'll soak up more. So I add a little bit as we go and I work it in, and you don't want to overwork it. As soon as you bring it together and it's wetty, tacky, and sticky, not soupy.
Right.
And in fact, you would probably look at this if I wasn't here and you were following the directions and you'd go, I think I added too much liquid. But what you're trying to do is lock in this moisture, right?
Unthinkable as it might sound, buttermilk biscuits could go the way of the Jell-O mold.
1, 2, 3.
But if so, they'll have to get past this one first.
This is like the most precious, perfect, tender down pillow dough right here. So we're not going to do anything with it other than get it into the shape that we want to cut it out. The key is to go in and go as far as you can to the side, no twisting or turning, straight down and out. We want our biscuits to touch on the pan. When you separate them, they tend to not bake at the same rate. So we believe that if you touch them on the pan, they will rise tall together and bake evenly.
So there you have it, the classic American buttermilk biscuit, a welcome addition to nearly every meal, delicious, and made from a recipe as easy as pie, even easier than pie. So why aren't you baking them again?
Oh, I love it.
I definitely have to try that recipe out this weekend, and I don't think it'll come out tasting or looking as good, but I'll try. And not a bad day to try taking a look at your 7-day forecast will be tomorrow, because we have some rain hanging around. Temperatures will be in the 60s this weekend. Sunday is the better day of the weekend. Then just as you head back to work Monday, well, Mother Nature gives you a beautiful work week with temperatures in the 70s, even going up to 76 on Wednesday. And then Friday, just as the weekend comes on, well, so does the rain.
Long Island weather is brought to you by Fire Island Ferries.
You're watching Newsday TV. And hey, now it's easier than ever to watch Newsday TV on your TV. That's right. We are officially streaming on Local Now. You can also find us on YouTube and all other streaming services seen here. So tune in and join us. I'm Amy McGorry. Thanks for tuning in.